This is Sean Granham, aka Sean Gran, and today I'm talking to the founder of one of the most impressive labels out there, especially journey-wise. His name is Kenny Fresh, and he runs Fresh Selects. How you doing, sir?
I'm good, man. By that intro, I thought you had someone else on the line. Like an interview. That's wow. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Nah, it's just the truth, man. But yeah, so can you detail how Fresh Selects began? Because it was originally a blog back in 2008, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I could tell the story a few different ways depending on how much time you have. But yeah, I started the blog in 2008, just kind of out of frustration of already working with certain artists. I got my start in music as a whole through Wajid and his Blink 47 label. That was in 2005. And so by 2008, I had been kind of working with them, and they're kind of an expansive, lots of extended family type of operation, between like Tarak and Tiambe Lockhart and Invincible and all the different artists that I met, through Wajid. So I kind of amassed, a good amount of artists that I wasn't working with in any kind of traditional sense, just kind of like people I really wanted to see do well and people that I really believed in. And at the time, there was no real blogs or real platforms for them. They all kind of had to make their own, which they did, to pretty good extents. But I wanted it to be one place for all of that to kind of live simultaneously. So that's why I started the blog, and then it just kind of blossoms from there. And to be honest, I just kind of went with a few different opportunities that came my way over the years, and then it wasn't until around 2013 I started to really kind of be much more decisive about my path and what I really wanted to do, and kind of take it into my own hands. And that's when I turned the blog, or the brand, whatever you want to call it, I turned Fresh Selects into a record label. And that was I guess that started kind of the middle of 2013 when our first release came out, towards the end, November.
Cool. So you covered pretty much the next 5 questions.
Oh, my bad.
No, it's good because we'll get into them a bit deeper. So what's the music scene like in Portland? Because freshselects.net was a big supporter of local acts, right?
Yeah, so how is the local scene? The music scene in Portland is really vibrant for a very specific type of music. For indie rock, it's like a mecca. We are one of the best cities in the world, not just the country, for indie rock. So that's really dope. I love a lot of the bands that come from here. For the stuff that I'm more known for, so to speak, like hip hop and especially R&B and kind of beats, it's not really too much here. It's still it's been, they've been active in all these types of music for years now, but it's not really well known for that outside of the city and even kind of within the city. So we still got a long way to go in those regards. So yeah, to kind of get into the next question that you mentioned, that was part of the idea of starting the website, was to try to use the access I had to certain artists who had a more international reach, like Wajid and like Tarak and people like that, and make exclusive content with them and get kind of an audience through people who were into them. And then once I had that audience, use the platform to put people on to my friends here in Portland, while they're coming to the page, and kind of slip that in. I didn't want to be just a Portland blog because I felt like it would never really make it outside of the city. So I just wanted to be a music blog in general, and to give Portland artists the same amount of attention, not treat them differently, oh, here's the local homie and then here's the big artist. Just treat them all equal across the board so people can just kind of decide for themselves. So yeah, some of the artists, locally I was focused on at the time were Devin Who and High Res and Dave Noddy, all really dope producers from here.
Dope. I didn't realize that Devin Who's from Portland.
Yeah, originally, born and raised. He lived here longer than I have, but yeah, then after I forget around when, but yeah, around the time of the website, he moved to LA, and now he's in San Francisco. But I think he still reps Portland if people were to ask him where he's from.
Yeah. How has the scene changed during Fresh Select's lifespan in Portland, would you say?
I don't know. I would say it has been progressive. I think it's been a slow progress. I mean, I really only focused on local. I've yet to really do anything with local artists as a label. It was more of during the blog era. So through that, I think specifically the artists that I was working with at the time, it seems to have helped them. I'd like to think. And yeah, I think from the local press, I think the local press is now covering more hip hop than they used to before. And, we kind of started to do some cross genre shows, because try to get a big indie rock band to do a show with, one of the rap groups I was working with. And that has kind of become a formula that a lot of people have used. So that's been cool. That's been cool to see. But it still has, some way to go.
Yeah. So before officially becoming a label, Fresh Selects had already released projects and songs from the likes of Knowledge, Black Spade, High Res, and Coltrane. How did you get acquainted with those acts, and how did you secure those releases? You've kind of touched on it before, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, those were all just, I don't really consider those proper label releases.
Yeah.
They're just kind of digital, they're just kind of content. But yeah, I met all those artists just kind of, usually pretty naturally. I think with Knowledge, I met him because he did a beat for Invincible's album back in 2007, I want to say.
Wow.
Maybe 2008. It was a song. It was a song with Tiambe Lockhart singing on it called Ropes. And I knew every other producer on the project, and I was like, who's Knowledge? So I reached out to him. I found him on MySpace, and I really liked his stuff. He had a few other tracks with Finale. So I reached out to him, started talking to him on Instant Messenger, and then he started sending me a lot of beats, and I thought his beats kind of reminded me of what Devin Who was doing. So I was like, yo, Devin, you heard of this guy Knowledge? And he was like, nah. So they started talking, and then 2 weeks later, they were, I think Devin hit me up yo, have you heard of this guy Knowledge? I'm like, yeah. I introduced you to him, and then by that time they already had a crew.
Oh, Clip Mode.
Yeah, and it was Clip Mode. That's how I found out about Mndsgn and Susie Analog.
That's crazy, man.
To this day. So yeah, it's just things like that. Coltrane, the first time I ever went on tour, Wajid brought me out to New York, and then from there, me, him, and Tarak all went to Europe. While we were in New York, the three of us were kind of meeting in Wajid's apartment, and he had a studio in which he would record. And me, Wajid, and Tarak were kind of in the living room talking about plans for the tour, and we were making mix CDs to sell. And in the other room was this just amazing voice and singing going on, and we were talking, and then we kind of paused because he was wearing headphones, so he was just recording his vocals, and he was just kind of doing random ad libs, and we would stop and be like, yo, who the fuck is this? He's killing it. And when he came out, lo and behold, it was Coltrane. So that's how we met. We just been kind of working on and off ever since. That was 2007 as well. So it's been almost, it's been 8-10 years with a lot of these people. A lot of it, is just through online, and then we would meet in person, years later. But yeah, it's all just been pretty natural.
Dope. Yeah, because I didn't realize that Comfort Zone, which is my favorite DiBiase project, and the one that put me onto him, was also released on or via Fresh Selects.
Yeah, that was a cool little one. That was just something where a friend of mine was bringing DiBiase out to play in Portland. And I was kind of doing a series of beat tapes at the time. I was releasing them once a month, just called Weekend Beats, and I'd put it out on a Saturday or a Sunday. And he hit me up. He was like, hey, is there any way you could help promote this show here in town? And I was like, well, all I had was a blog. If we did some content or something, then we could push it that way. And me and DiBiase had been talking about doing something, so I came up with the idea of if we would release a beat tape, but I thought that was reaching. I never thought he would do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was, he's such a humble and, gracious guy, and he came through and, laced me with the tracks. We came up with the artwork. The whole thing went down in less than a week from kind of the initial idea to when it was released. And I think we put it up like the day before the show, and it just kind of took off from there. But yeah, that was a blessing for sure.
That's crazy because if I'm right, those were DiBiase's first experiments with Ableton, I think, because Knowledge had started teaching with Ableton as well, and Comfort Zone, like the tracks that he put out through there were like the first ones that he had done using Ableton, because I think he was using maybe Reason or something else with his MPC or SP.
Yeah, I think it was mostly SP. Yeah, I think, I don't know, you'd have to talk to him, but that sounds about right, and that would explain why he called it Comfort Zone. That actually makes perfect sense. And yeah, and I remember we kind of included like an artist note in the post that he was saying something like that. So yeah, I think you're right about that. That's crazy. I kind of forgot about that, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know where I read it, but maybe it was from that post, but I don't even remember. Like, I just remember knowing about it. So yeah.
That's dope.
So what's your musical background? Because I think you just said that you made beats.
No, I never. I'll leave that to the professionals. I've never made any music or anything. I've just always been a fan since day one.
Yeah, so Weekend Beats was actually like a compilation then? Or was
yeah, it was just a series where it'd be one producer for each release.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, I think we did a Devin Who tape and a high res one. Taupe, we did one with him. I'm spacing on others. But yeah, I've always just been kind of a creative director, executive producer, curator type, role.
Yeah, cool. So what's your musical background? Like, what music did you grow up on? And like in terms of first experiences, like creating?
Yeah, kind of random stuff. I think the first tape I remember having was the soundtrack to the Mighty Ducks. And that was like a lot of, big like stadium rock, like Queen and things like that. So that was the first thing that really grabbed me when I was real young. And then, yeah, I really got into Queen when I was young. And then Michael Jackson, of course, because it was like, early 90s and he was king of the world. Yeah. I think my first CD was the Michael Jackson History, double disc, greatest hits. And then from there, I got into a lot of like grunge rock and stuff like Nirvana and Pearl Jam. And at the same time, I was super into Jimi Hendrix and Led Zeppelin. This is all when I was like first and second grade. I was really into all that. And I was like just super into it. I would nerd out on. I would like write down all the lyrics and notebooks, and like if the albums didn't have credits as to who was playing each instrument, I would try to figure it out myself and write it down. Just like crazy nerd things. I just lived in my bedroom, just play, music and go into another world. But and then I think around middle school is when I really started to get into rap. That was because I grew up in New Jersey. I moved to Portland, or a suburb of Portland, my freshman year of high school. So like I think like 5th or 6th grade is when I started getting into rap, and that was kind of like the bad boy, like Biggie, Puffy, Mace kind of era. And some of that stuff was cool to me. I thought it was like all my friends were into it, so I was kind of into it and kind of like the trying to fit in thing. As you do in middle school. I was just like, yeah, they like it, I like it, it's cool enough. But in New Jersey, we would pick up all the New York radio stations. So it wasn't until I heard like an old school radio show. It was like Cool DJ Red Alert. I think at noon, like the lunch hours, he would play like all 80s and 90s classic rap. He'd play like Boogie Down Productions. I think it was I'm Still Number One. And that song, for some reason, just like blew my mind. And then I really got into like the old stuff, because he shouts everyone out in that song. So I made a list and just kind of checked out each rapper, from that, like Eric B and Rakim and Public Enemy and all that. So I was getting really into all of like the golden era rap stuff, like 10 years after the fact. And that's when I really fell in love with hip hop.
Awesome, man. So what made you decide to turn Fresh Selects into a proper record label?
Honestly, a record label is something I've always wanted to do ever since I was a kid. That was like the ultimate dream, but it just seemed like something, it was kind of like, all right, when I get rich, I'm gonna start a label, because it just seemed like there's no way you could do it without money,
Yeah.
And then I was just kind of like watching how things were going. It was really Mndsgn. He was putting out these cassette tapes. He would like, make an EP on Bandcamp, and then he was just like, I think he was like buying tapes from like Goodwill and stuff like that. like exercise tapes that had, you know, like a set that would have like 10 tapes, and he was just dubbing over them and crossing out the names and writing Mndsgn. Yeah, super raw, like extremely DIY, and selling them like limited edition, like 15 copies at a time on his Bandcamp. Of course, they would sell out in like 10 minutes, and there was a few that sold out before I could get them. And I was just like, damn, man, like, then I was like, yo, if it's really that easy, then I looked into the price of manufacturing cassettes, like, you know, in a legit way, like through a factory, and it was super affordable. So I reached out to him like, yo, man, like, how about, like, let's do an experiment. Like, what if I put out your next release on cassette and we see how well it does? Like, you know, if you could sell 50 copies yourself in 10 minutes, let's try to sell like 250 copies and, you know, put a few $100s behind it. And, like, you know, him being the super cool guy that he is, like, he was like, yeah, okay, I'm down. And so his next release was Breatharian, and we just kind of like took it from there. And yeah, my goal was to sell 30 copies. We pressed up 250 copies, and I wanted to sell all of them in the first 30 days. And on day number 30, we sold our last copy, and I was like, oh shit, like, okay, this might actually work. And that was kind of the idea at first, was just like, that's always been a big thing with me, all my favorite releases, I wanted them to have some sense of permanence, you know, because like a lot of the stuff that I posted on the website in 2008 or early on would be like Z-share links or rapid share links, and they're all dead, you know. So later, when I relaunched the site around like 2011, I hosted them all on my own server. So I'm like, okay, you know, just so that won't happen again. But even all those links are dead now because my site is down. You know, I only have a Bandcamp up now. So like all those releases are just kind of like in limbo. Like, I'm sure they live on certain people's hard drives, but you can't just Google and pull them up. So I'm like, damn, like it's really important to me that these releases exist in at least some physical form, so like it can be passed down to future generations, or even just for ourselves in 10, 15 years when we want to, like, you know, relive our 20s. We can pull out, you know, our favorite albums, whether it's on tape or CD or something. So that was kind of the idea at first, is I kind of wanted to be like, I'm really big into movies. So I was inspired by like the Criterion collection, how they would kind of like restore lost movies from like the 60s and, you know, and far beyond that, and also kind of elevate certain newer releases that they thought were, you know, of that level. So that's kind of how I saw Fresh Selects operating as a label at first, but then it was really Low Leaf that changed that, because she, you know, of course she knows Mndsgn. They lived together in a house with a few other musicians for some time. And I think it was like the week I announced publicly, because we kind of kept it secret until we like really had a release date and the tapes, you know, sent off, that I announced that Fresh Selects was going to be a label. My first release was Mndsgn. Low Leaf texted me and was like, hey, can my next release come out on Fresh Selects? And I was like,
boy.
Oh, I was like, damn, okay, like, yeah, that'd be amazing. So that was like the first original, you know, release that wasn't a re-release. And then just having so much fun putting out that project, I was like, well, shit, like, why don't I just do this? so we've just been kind of doing it that way from that point on.
Man, you have such a dope story. Sorry, I'm just taking it all in. There's so much information.
Yeah, no, sorry. Like,
no, it's awesome, man. Like, it's cool to get so in depth.
Could lead to like 2 hours of talking. So if I'm rambling, please tell me to shut up.
Honestly, anything you have to offer, people are gonna want to hear, man. It's all of use and it's all real interesting. Especially because my next couple of questions are about your releases anyway. So Breatharian was actually released on tapes before?
No, it was released on Mndsgn's Bandcamp. And then I released it on tape for the first time, and we added bonus tracks, and we added like instrumental versions, and he gave me exclusive bonus mix. We added all types of
Frugal Earth Part 2, I think it was, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that was all kind of accidental, really, but it all worked out in the end. Like, I think it kind of seemed intentional, so maybe I don't even want to tell that story. We'll just say that, we add all that stuff.
Yeah, that's crazy, because I mean, from that EP, you also had I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's Inidia or Inidia.
Yeah, right.
Which is the remix EP.
Yeah.
Iman Omari and all them guys, and it just seemed like so much. So it's hard to explain because like mind design stuff is like usually a tape, and you download it. That's it. That's how you experience it. That was the content and the way it was pushed. But when he upped the level to like releasing it through Fresh Selects, it was like, okay, then you had the mix coming out with it. You had the remix.
Yeah.
This whole thing that was like a multi-tiered release almost.
Yeah, and that was my whole thing. Is I felt like, and you know, of course, no disrespect to how he and other artists were doing things before, because obviously it was working, you know. But it was just my theory, and again, it was a bit of an experiment that like, yo, if you would like treat this release like a bit more, like I totally understand the DIY lo-fi aesthetic, and I think especially for that kind of crowd, like the beat scene, I think they really appreciate things that are really sincere and directly from the artist, and I do too, so I understand it. But like just from I don't know, not from like a cold business sense, but again, just kind of from a historical sense. I'm like, yo, if we just gave this project a little bit more attention, a little bit more strategy behind it than, you know, that I feel like it deserves, I feel like it would really take things to the next level. And I would always tell them that even in the blog days, like Mndsgn and Knowledge, like they're notorious for just like, they would finish a project and not tell anyone about it, or, you know, not tell me about it at least, and then just put it out on Bandcamp the next day. And just kind of, you know, and of course it would do well because it's Mndsgn and Knowledge. Like anyone who likes their stuff is gonna check for their new release, like no problem, and they all follow them. But my whole thing was like, man, like give me like one song from it a week before, so we can kind of get people ready, and I can kind of premiere it and now push it to all the other blogs, because you know, Mndsgn and Knowledge and all those guys, they were killing it on their own, but they weren't really getting any press. Like even like OK Player and people who really kind of keep their ear to the streets, they never wrote about those guys until just recently, until Breatharian, and then, you know, now the Stone's Throw stuff, which again is fine because they've been doing, you know, they've been touring and getting placements and all this stuff without press. But I've just seen it with other artists. I just know that once you start to get press, how that kind of helps things move faster through the industry machine, you know, as it is. So yeah, that was my whole theory behind Breatharian. I was just trying to show Ringo, you know, kind of personally, and other artists that like, yeah, if you kind of give it with you come at it with a little bit more strategy and make it last longer. Because that was the thing, they would put it out and everyone would rush and buy it the first day it was out, and then it would kind of be a trickle of sales, you know, for like a week, and then it'd be kind of dead in the water because all their fans already had it, and then they have to put out the next tape, you know, 2-3 weeks after that, where I'm like, yo, you could let Breatharian live for like 6 months if you really kind of treat it right.
Yeah, and that ties into the history thing as well, because it makes it even more timeless.
Exactly.
And I'm so glad you did, especially with Breatharian, because listening to that EP, that's like set the standard for what a concept EP producer should be, or LP, whatever concept project should be for a producer, because it's incredible, man. I think it's my favorite Mndsgn release, and I have like I love all of them.
I think it is too, and I could say that without any bias, because originally that wasn't supposed to be the Fresh Selects project. Like, he was working on another one for me. It was going to be called Milo, because we were talking about doing a project, and he made a bunch of beats, or he sent me some beats he had laying around, and they're all dope. But I told him just to kind of add some more and finish it, and then he just I kind of lost track of him. We didn't talk for a little bit, and then when I caught up with him again a few weeks later, I was like, yo, man, what's up? You got any new stuff? And he was like, man, like things have been rough. Like my cat just died. It really kind of took me out of the zone. I was like, damn, that's real. Like, you know, I've had cats before. Like, I get it. And I was like, yo, what if we like made a tape, you know, dedicated to Milo, his cat? You know, he was like, yeah, that could be kind of dope. Like, all right, let's do that. And then in the meantime, I think he just kind of put together this tape, and he hit me up like, yo, I'm going to put out this tape called Breatharian next week. And I was like, what? Like, why? Like, I thought I was
what happened to our plans?
And he was like, yo, man, like, you know, it's just kind of like times are tight. I need to like pay rent. I'm like, well, that's real. Like, I can't really, you know, tell you otherwise. So I'm like, all right, well, put it out. And then he did, and I heard it, and I was like, yo, this is too good. I was like, let this be the project. Like, let me put out this one. So he was like, all right. And so that's how it became the tape. And same thing with Frugal Earth. He was like, he had already done one, and we were working on getting the finishing touches. And originally the remixes were going to be on Breatharian, so we were waiting on the remixes to come back. And he was like, yo, I'm gonna put out Frugal Earth Volume 2. And I was like, what? Why? Like, yo, let me, like, come on, just give me some more time. And he was like, I need to. And I was like, how much money do you think you're going to make from it? And he told me the amount. I was like, all right, I'll give you that amount, and we'll just include it as a free download for Breatharian. He was like, all right, that's fair. And so that's how Frugal Earth is now a part of Breatharian.
Wow, man.
Yeah, that's been my experience kind of throughout this whole thing. It's just, it's things got to move fast for the artist side for it to make sense, but I need time, from a business standpoint to get things ready. So I'm always having to kind of put out fires and remedy that. But
you must keep busy.
Yeah, to say the least.
Because I mean, the producer has their own timing, the people have their own timing.
Right.
Sometimes you have to like wait until the people are ready.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't want to drop like maybe 2 songs in 2 days.
Yeah,
they could be a lot stronger and a lot more potent.
Let people catch on. Yeah, exactly. I like to tell a story with each album and kind of like breadcrumbs leading them to the final, pot of gold, which is the album. And then even once the album is out, having some breadcrumbs after the fact, which music videos and remixes and things like that. So it's not just like the album's out. Okay, cool, I love it. Now what else you got? Instead, it could be like, oh, the album's out. And then little reminders that you love it, so that it kind of sticks with you.
Yeah, good thing you brought up the music videos, because that leads into my next question. So from Breatharian, we got the fantastic video for Hiking/Fifth Dim, which you co-directed with Adam R. Garcia of The Press.
Yeah.
Was that your first music video? Because I know you'd wanted to go into directing.
No, that was actually my 5th. I think I did a series of music videos and one short film for Coltrane's album that he put out through Plug Research, and those were the first ever videos I directed, and those were like a real blessing. I made a lot of amateur mistakes that anyone does when going into a new field, and it was a lot of on-the-job learning. And those I kind of co-directed too with my homie Noah Porter, who's a really talented director and editor here in Portland. But so it was dope to kind of switch things up and go to even more 50-50 kind of direction. And this one, Mndsgn, that video was cool because this time the roles were kind of reversed, where like they came up with the treatment and they like pitched it to me. It was the first time in my life where I was the client, because I've worked in as a day job, I've worked at like marketing agencies for a little bit. Like I worked at Adidas and different agencies that would pitch to Adidas, and you always see how these people. I've always been, like on the side of people who are pitching to the client, or I've been
the one trying to sell.
Yeah, and I was like, but it was cool. That was the first time in my life someone was like pitching something to me to see if I liked it. I was like, damn, this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, they had a great idea, and I loved it. Their whole idea was that like someone, because the problem obviously was, how do we make a music video with Mndsgn not in it? Because, to fly him up to Portland from LA would be, most of the budget. Like we made that video for like literally no money, Yeah. So they came up with a treatment, and they said a guy, listening to music and he gets kind of transported. Like he's listening to the song and he gets transported to kind of like this fantasy world, and they were going to design all of these images and then, kind of project them using, video projectors and stuff like that. And I loved it. My only thing was like, yeah, can we make it a girl? Because I feel like the beat scene is already so testosterone and so
heavy,
male driven. I was like, yeah, I love it. Can we just make it a girl though? Because I feel like that's what the beat scene needs, is just more women involved. And I didn't want it to be like a sexualized thing. I didn't want it to be like a half naked girl or like
and it's so easy to say yes to that, or to turn it into that. So it's
right
that you had like a female lead.
Yeah, so I was like,
who's sexy
like
and appealing
cool,
without being sexy and appealing.
But she's just cool.
Yeah.
She's just a cool, normal girl. Like, what a concept, you know, like ones that we all know in real life.
Yeah.
And, you know, and they were of course like super open. As soon as I said that, they were like, oh yeah, like that's great. And so that was really like the only idea I could take credit for in the whole thing. And then, you know, I was there on set, and then I cast her. Like, that's the homie Laura. She's actually a really dope designer herself. So, and that was important to me too. I wanted to be someone who would kind of understand what we were doing, and she was really into the whole idea of the things that they designed. If you go to the Pressures website, you could see the designs that they projected onto her. In the video, it's a bit obscure because it's just kind of, you know, lights and stuff like that, but I think the effect is still there. But if you see the designs, they actually made a physical magazine that she's looking at in the beginning, and then she kind of falls asleep or dreams, and then she's in, you know, this world of design. So you could actually, I own they let me keep the magazine that they made. They like actually printed out, you know, a book and made a magazine for the video. So
this time, man.
Yeah, that was a really cool, but that was kind of a learning experience in itself. I think that's where I kind of pushed it a little bit too far as I don't want to say commercializing, but as far as like taking these DIY releases and treating them like more traditional label releases, is we released that video through Vivo. And
that was my next question.
Yeah, the number one comment on the video was,
why Vivo?
Why does Mndsgn have a Vivo channel?
Yeah.
And there was like 100 likes, and it's funny because the person who made that comment was this guy Simon, who's now in that group with Spooky Black and all them. What's the name? Blowing up. Yeah, The Standard, and I love their stuff. So I'm like, damn, Simon said that. so like, you know, that's the last video I ever put on Vivo. I was like, all right, that was corny. Like, we pushed it a little bit too far, you know. But yeah, so we kind of reeled it in a bit from there. But you know, I'm learning. That was my first release, so but I am paying attention, and I'm not too big to admit when we kind of, you know, made a mistake and adjusted from there.
Yeah, I don't even think it was like people going, Vivo is all this like pouring and like big labels and like pimping artist thing. It was more the surprise of it, because people, at least half the people were like, but how? Like, it's Mndsgn. He's been making tapes where he pushes out the name and he personalizes the artwork. How does this work?
Yeah, that's why I liked it, because I was like, yeah, fuck it, like we, like, you know, he can be on that same level. Like, watch, and the video is really kind of universal. It's not underground looking. It's very like, that could have been a Rihanna video, you know, obviously not maybe production quality, but just like treatment wise, or like look, it wasn't like a super niche thing. So that was kind of me trying to be bold with that, but like I said, I think maybe we went a little bit too far. And then when they came out with the Mndsgn videos through Stone's Throw, like the one he did with Alima, or we saw the VHS one for, was it Eggs, and then the one that's in the thrift shop, I saw how effective those were, and I was like, okay, like, yeah, I see what I did and what they did, and I think it changes how I would approach things in the future. But I still love the video, and I like it for what it is, you know. Yeah,
you should. It's a great video anyway. It's just interesting to see the response to like the channel.
Yeah.
That it was released through. Yeah. So it seems like delivering a product across mixed media and platforms with unity is an important thing for the label. For example, again, I don't know if I can pronounce this, Loli's Akashalay.
Man, I mispronounce it all the time too, and I feel embarrassed. I'm trying to talk to her, and she's like, "What'd you say?" And I'm like, "Damn it!" I'm like, "Your album," you know. I just try not to even say it.
So
I know what you're talking about.
That LP, the songs, the album art, the video, they're all so cohesive in both message and delivery. Can you expand on how you, your team, and the artists work together to bring that to fruition? So I guess it varies every time.
Yeah, it does kind of vary every time, but that album was kind of worked pretty ideally originally. Like I said, Lolif approached me. We had previous discussions. I was trying to get her a distribution deal, because she was another artist who was putting out amazing projects and just uploading them herself through Bandcamp, which, again, is, you know, not to slight that, because I put out my projects through Bandcamp, you know. But like, she wasn't really doing singles or any press or anything. She was just kind of uploading and then promoting. And it's amazing how far it went through that. And I think that speaks, you know, to just how quality her music is, which is something I think we all saw. But so she reached out to me we were already having conversations about me helping her get distribution, because I don't know, it just kind of wasn't even on my mind to ask her or approach her too directly, because I was kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna do this cassette thing and re-releases, and it'll mostly be like beat tapes and stuff like that. And then when she asked me, I was like, yeah, like why didn't I think of that? Like, yeah, you should come. You're like, we should put out your project, dude. That's a great idea. That's what this label should be about, is putting out projects like Low Leaf. There's no other label that I feel like Low Leaf would really fit in on. I'm like, I should be that label. Like, I love her stuff, and I love all the stuff that she would, fit in with. So that was kind of like a pivotal point. But I'm getting sidetracked. But yeah, so the process for that album was she had an album done, and she turned it in to me, and I think it was 14 songs or something like that. And I'm super critical with when I listen to albums, and when it's an album that I'm going to be putting out on my label, I'm even more critical than I would be just as a listener, So my thing with Low Leaf, she's always made amazing projects, but they've been, she's gotten like incredibly better with each release she put out. Each one was just like distinctly better than the one before it. But some of them were a bit all over the place, just kind of a lot of really great songs, but they didn't necessarily come together as one cohesive statement. But the one she put out just before Akasha Ale, I think was really good. It was all acoustic and it all kind of flowed, more or less. But so she turned in 14 songs, and there was like definitely some commonalities between them, but there was some songs, like there was one song that was just kind of like her on some rock stuff, and it was really dope, but it just didn't really fit in with the rest to me. And it seemed like, and then when I talked to her about what she wanted the album to be about, she did have a clear message, and I was like, okay, that's great, I love it. Let's take away everything that doesn't drive home that message unless it's completely essential, So I think I wanted to take away maybe like 5 or 6 songs. There was some compromise where I wanted to take away certain songs, and she was like, actually, all those songs were ones that I was kind of iffy on anyways. So like, I'm cool with that. But there was 2 that she was like, these need to stay because they're really important to the story. And I was like, okay, perfect. So we just came to that perfect compromise. And I was like, how about this song order now that those songs are gone? And she was like, yeah, that's cool. And she kind of took that and rearranged a few things. And she was like, how about this song order? And I was like, yeah, that's it. That's perfect. And yeah, so it was just that like perfect, because I never want to be that, I never want to be the suit, quote unquote, or like telling someone like, you need to make a hit. Like, there's no hits on this. Go back and write me a hit. Or like, I'll never be that dude. Like, I never want to tell someone how to write or how to sing or how to record. Like, I won't be working with them if I didn't think that their stuff was incredible already. But I do want to bring out the best from each artist, and specifically each release, because I think there's so many albums to me, and usually they do just fine anyways, but to me, that could have been better if they were just sequenced a bit more intentionally. And it's not even that, sometimes just a difference of opinion, like, oh, no, that's how I wanted it. I'm like, okay, cool, that's not how I see it, but if that's how you wanted it, then like, that's what it is. But sometimes it's just kind of an oversight where people aren't even really thinking about sequencing or thinking about how one track ends and how it plays into the one after it,
Yeah.
And those are things I'm just like, I just want you to think about it. So if you're really thinking about it and you listen to those last 6 seconds of track number 2 and those first 5 seconds of track number 3 and you're happy with it, then that's cool. As long as you think about it and you're actually listening for that, So that's a conversation I usually have about, every album. Just little things like that. And then the artwork, and then the artwork for the singles, like all the details to me are like a big difference between like a cool album and like a timeless album that people can kind of, because when you buy old records, when you come across that perfect record that's just, you could play, you never have to move the needle, that's such like a gem. But it's so rare. There's so many records you're like, yeah, this has like 3 cuts that are heat, and the rest are kind of whatever. They're like random covers of Beatles songs or just stuff that doesn't really work, and it probably worked from like a marketing sense at the time. But 40 years later, you're like, yeah, we don't really need these songs, but this one right here is the one, So I'm really only trying to put out albums where like you never need to touch the needle. And I think, and then so when we put out Low Leaf's album, like that's the most of the feedback. Like if you go to the Bandcamp page, like most of the user reviews are like, this is Low Leaf's best album. It's her most cohesive one, you know, from her fans. And then from a press level, you know, we got a lot of people saying that same thing. So I felt really, it was reaffirming, you know, I think to both of us that like that was a goal that we had. And we didn't say that, we didn't put that in the press or anything. Like we didn't say it was, you know, her most, you know, cohesive release to date or whatever. But that's like, we just put that intention into it and people caught that. And that's like the first comment that a lot of people made. So that felt really good, I think, for both of us.
Yeah, that's going to be amazing, especially as like the first one that you had like a true hand in.
Yeah.
To find out that, you know, like it's not just you hearing it and like one way and that being
right.
That,
I'm not crazy.
You're hearing it how
right.
everyone needs to hear it as well. So and the fact that you and Low Leaf can speak and compromise on both sides,
that's huge. That's rare. There's some artists who are just not trying to hear it, and and there's some of my favorite artists. They make amazing music, and I try to respect it and work around it and do like, you know, influence. With each artist, you just kind of have to figure out your borders of like what you can have a hand in and what you can't, and try to work within that. But yeah, it's really a blessing with Low Leaf. And, you know, I kind of had to earn it with her, which is totally fair because she's been doing this on her own for so long. So I can't just come in and be like, okay, you're doing it on my label now, we're gonna do it like this. She would like, you know, she'd be like, what? Are you crazy? So like, you know, I had to, yeah, like, you know, rightfully so. Like, who am I to, you know, tell her how to do what she's been doing great, you know, for 5-7 years already. But I think now I've kind of earned her trust, and also I know her better as a person. So like, yeah, we seem to work better and better, you know, as time goes on. We kind of get to know each other and our kind of our stubbornness and also our sensitivities and things like that. And I think that's crucial with all the artists, is to kind of like get a sense for that and be like, what can I give you feedback on and what can't I? Because what I can't, I'll just accept for what it is, but for what I can, like, let's, you know, brainstorm it out.
Man, before Fresh Selects became a label, if I'm right, you already had an art department, engineer, and marketing department, right? So at what point in your journey did you acquire those?
Yeah, it just kind of all came along pretty naturally as these things go. Let's take it case by case. So with the art department, so to speak, that was at the time, it was my man Nate James, who's a really talented graphic designer. He does these amazing collages, and he more or less kind of came up with this style of collage that a lot of people have taken and ran with ever since, and it's kind of become like the go-to template for how beat tape cover art is made. For my money, he was one of the very first, if not the first, to kind of come up with that style. But with him, it was funny because it actually all comes back to Mndsgn again. He had done this mix called Birches, which was really just kind of like, it was just like a mix of samples that he never used. So it wasn't even chops or loops, it was just the samples themselves. And I think he like uploaded it to his SoundCloud or something like that. And I was like, yo, this is amazing. Like, can I post this on the site? And we, I think from there, we decided to do like a remix contest, and, you know, for people to take their favorite sample and to flip it. But he had really dope artwork for it, but there was no credits for it or anything. And I know Ringo is pretty talented, and I just assumed that he did it. So when I like to include the credits every time I post something. So I posted the you know, Mndsgn Birches, and I said mixed by Mndsgn, artwork by Mndsgn, and, you know, all that. And then I think the day after the post went up, I got an email from Nate James being like, hey, I did the artwork on the Mndsgn stuff. Would you mind to, giving me my credit? And I was like, oh shit, like, my bad. Like, I guess I never even asked. I just assumed that he did it. Yeah. I was like, yo, man, I love your stuff. Like, I need someone who could do artwork. And he was like, oh yeah, I'm super down. Like, you know, he was into the site, and yeah, he did like the DiBiase the cover, and I think the first project we did was I re-released Coltrane's God Must Be a Boogeyman, and that was something he had done himself, and he had done it with some artwork that, again, me being a jerk, I was just not into. And I was like, man, like that, like that project is so dope to have that as its artwork. Like, it just didn't sit right with me. And that was like one of the few projects Coltrane had put out without me. It was at a time where me and him weren't really like, you know, checking in with each other as often as we do, you know, ever since. So I was like, damn, I was out of the loop for that one, and it came out with a cover that not would have came out if I was in the picture. So we like went back and redid it, and we did, and I kind of really tested Nate. I was like, all right, I got a test for you. Like, if you could do, I need a full PDF booklet of this Coltrane album with his like lyrics and liner notes and all that, and it was like a 20-page thing, and he killed it, and within like a month. And ever since then, I was like, okay, cool, like on the team.
Man.
And so, yeah, and so for a pretty good like 2 to 3 years, he did like all my artwork, and he was great, and he was always super quick turnarounds. Like, it would always be like, you know, like that DiBiase thing. It'd be like, yo, put out a DiBiase tape in like 2 days. Could you come up with some artwork? Like, all I know is that it's gonna be called Comfort Zone. He was like, yeah, I love DiBiase. He just came up with something like an astronaut with his helmet off and, you know, head twisted and everything. I was like, yeah, that's great. We ran with it like it's just a done deal, you know?
Yeah, so true. Actually, now looking at the Comfort Zone artwork, I can see it says Fresh Selects Weekend Beats number 9.
Exactly.
On top of it, I never
subtle.
Ever clocked that before.
Yeah, I like to keep it subtle. I really don't like to overbrand stuff. I didn't even have a logo for the label for the first like year and a half. I have one now, and it's never gonna be on an album cover. It'll always just be real small on the back cover. Like, I don't like to overbrand stuff. I like artists to kind of be themselves and Fresh Selects to be, you know, a part of it, rather than Fresh Selects be the thing that the artists are branded with and, you know, are a part of. But so anyways, yeah, I'm getting sidetracked again. So that's how I got my art guy initially, and then the engineer, man, there's this project that hopefully one day will see the light of day. But there was a time where I was relaunching Fresh Selects in like 2011, and I was doing a compilation with Wajid, and it was kind of like my career kind of coming in full circle, where I'd kind of gone off and done some things on my own, and, you know, Wajid kind of saw, you know, what I was doing, and he like, you know, was super supportive of it, and he was like, yo, let's do something together. I was like, okay. So he sent me just like 3 folders worth of beats, and he was like, take of these what you want, and kind of aim on, get different people to rap on them, get people to sing on them, like all year. Like, yeah. So, and I did it. That was amazing. That was really the first project I ever really like executive produced, you know, super hands-on. So I went around and got a bunch of people, and then when I started sending things back to him, he was like really impressed. He was like, damn, like these songs came out like legit. He was like, these are too good to just kind of like throw out there. We need to get these mixed. Do you know anyone who mixes? And I was like, yeah, I got someone. And then knowing damn well I didn't, but I just didn't want to like let him down, you know? So I told my friend Adam, Doc Adam, who's like one of the best DJs in Portland at the time. He's now moved to Seattle, and now he's one of the best DJs in Seattle. But I was telling him, he's a big fan of YG, and he's always been real supportive of what I did, what I was doing. And I was like, yo, I need someone to mix these projects. Like, how are we gonna do that? We don't have any budget. I don't even know what mixing like fully is. You know, I was like really inexperienced. Like, I knew what it was, but I don't know how you do it or like what it looks like. And he was like, you know what? Like, I've been meaning to kind of teach myself how to mix. Like, I bet you, like, give me like a few weeks, I can teach myself. And I was like, yeah, all right, let's try that. So I was like, yeah, I got someone to mix, like send all the stems. So he, you know, did his thing. He like, it was dope because he gave me kind of demo beats, and then the rappers would loop them and rap over that. And then once they did that, this is what makes YG so much iller than a lot of other producers, is once they recorded over it, he then took the track back and would finish his beat around what they did and would add, you know, bridges, that's and it would change between verses and all these ill dropouts, and like that's what made the songs like amazing. They weren't just like 8 or 4 or 8 bar loops, you know, they were like real arrangements. So he did that, and then he sent back the stems, and Adam just kind of looked at all these video tutorials, and he didn't even have Pro Tools. To this day, he doesn't have Pro Tools. He mixes in Ableton. So he did the first mix, and it sounded pretty good. And we sent it, and I sent it to Wajid. I was like, yo, this is Adam. Like, he's been mixing shit for years. He's the best engineer, you know, in Portland. And Wajid, like, you know, Wajid is like me. He's super critical of shit. So if he didn't like it, I know right away he would have been like, no, we need to like.
I've been sweating, boy.
Yeah, I was. He was like, yo, man, we need to get someone for real. But he heard it, and he was like, yeah, this is dope. Like, how much is he charging? I was like, man, he's doing it for free. He was like, all right, he's the one. so Adam kind of taught himself how to mix doing that whole project. And and it's just been getting better and better ever since. So to this day, pretty much every project I have that needs mixing, Adam does. But a lot of the projects lately have been kind of the artists mixing it themselves, and then Adam will master it. But yeah, just kind of whatever, falls into that category of needing something, like Adam, does it all in Ableton still to this day.
Man.
It's just been little things like that where it's just like I have a need, and then just like the universe provides something. I'm just like, okay, wow, like that's exactly what I needed at that exact moment, and it just came together. And it's my whole life story has been like that, pretty much. I've been really fortunate.
Yeah. So that project is unreleased, huh?
Yeah. Now it's kind of in this limbo. We recorded most of it in like 2010. So it's in this weird limbo where, like, if we were to put it out now, to me, it's timeless, but just kind of some of the people we reached out to, and just kind of like, it would seem a bit weird if it just came out today. I don't think we could pull it off as being like people would know we didn't make it like this month, So it's in this weird limbo where it's like not old enough to be nostalgic and not recent enough to be new. So I think I'm gonna wait another like 5 years and put it out when it's like nostalgic or something. Man. Yeah, but I've kind of teased a few songs over the years. Like, I've been on different radio shows, and I'll kind of play a snippet, or certain DJ homies will kind of play something. I think Wajid played a track or two when he was on Benji B. Like, little things are out there, but nothing has ever come out in full. But yeah, that's one that's kind of in orbit that, right situation comes, could land at any moment.
Need to hear that. Need to hear it for sure. And yeah, just quickly about your marketing department as well. Where did that come from? Are you the marketing department?
Yeah, I'm all the departments. I'm a little too hands-on to ever really fully delegate. Even when Adam is mixing, when he was here in Portland, I would be annoyingly right over his shoulder the whole time, like, turn that down, or turn this up, oh, okay, put it back where it was. Like, just the worst, like, most annoying little brother anyone could ask for. But so, and then with the artwork, like, sometimes Nate, or now, Rob or other people I'm working with, like, sometimes they'll knock it right out of the park, and like the comfort zone, I was like, yeah, it's perfect, like, boom, or like, okay, I'm gonna put that up in an hour. Other stuff, I'm like, nah, that's not really like how I saw it. We need something darker or more, just like whatever, sometimes I have a certain vision and I really can't kind of like I don't know, I don't feel, I can't put it out if it doesn't feel right, so we'll go back and forth until it feels right. So I'm really hands-on with all the departments. I have a press agent I work with. I'm pretty hands-on with that too. Like, I write all the one sheets, and I write all the press releases, and I reach out to a lot of press people myself. So yeah, like, I've got a hand in everything. But again, just like I was saying, as things have kind of been growing and getting a little bit out of my two hands, and I've kind of had this need, then people have just been popping up like, hey man, I love what you're doing. Like, people I've known for years and I trust and are super official at what they do have been reaching out to me like, hey man, I love what you're doing. Can I be a part of it? I'm like, yeah, that's great. Why didn't I think of that? Like, just like when Lowleaf reached out to me, I'm like, damn, that should have been my idea. Like, yeah, you should be a part of Fresh Selects. So there's been a few people who've been kind of, coming on staff. None of them are here locally, ironically, but yeah, I got someone in Brooklyn, someone in San Francisco, and someone in LA that, as of the last few weeks, have kind of like, come on board in kind of unofficial consulting roles and kind of helping me out. So it's cool to see it all kind of come together. Ultimately, I'd of course love to get us all in the same city and really get like an official staff, but for the time being, like, things are working out with what we've got,
Yeah. So your radio show, Tight Songs, is slightly younger than Fresh Select's time as a record label, with it having begun in March of last year. What prompted the decision to start a radio show?
That was something that I just kind of always thought would be cool to do. I just know myself, and if I didn't have some type of format or a due date that like some outside force like a radio station would impose on me, that I would never because people just like, oh, why don't you start a podcast? And I'm like, yeah, I just know myself, and I'm such a perfectionist that like I would just spend a full month on getting one episode right, and then if next month one thing came up, like, oh, I had to go out of town, and then would just like forget about it, you know? Yeah. So like I need some structure for something like that. With the label, I'm good with, you know, because that's like my everything. That's my focus. So like I'm good at structuring that. The structure in any like extracurricular activities, I'm like, nah, like someone's got to really tell me when it's due and when I got to show up. So so my friend started hit me up and told me they're starting this radio station here in Portland, and they had reached out to some of my other friends who were kind of all experts in their respective fields or genres. And once he told me who else was involved, I was like, yeah, that's amazing. And actually I had kind of even like put a tweet out, just trying to like put it out into the world and lightweight, try to like manifest something. Like I think like 3 or 4 months earlier, like it'd be really cool to do some type of terrestrial radio. I'm just, you know, putting it out there. And I, you know, funnily enough, like this guy doesn't even have Twitter. He never saw that, but just the fact that I put that out into the world, he came out of nowhere, called me out of blue. It was someone who used to be a bartender at this venue that I threw a concert series at. It was like a Fresh Selects Presents, you know, concert series for a full year. And he just liked all the acts that I was booking at the time. And he, you know, he's since gone on to his own success where he quit bartending and now he owns his own bar, and it's like one of the coolest bars in Portland. And then now he's working for this new radio station, X-Ray FM, as the program director. And he's like, yo, I'm just going around trying to get everyone who's like the best of their genre. And I just want to reach out to you. And I think he originally kind of had in mind me kind of being like a hip hop thing. And but I was like, yeah, that's cool. But like, here's what I really want to play. And I kind of told him the concept I had of like kind of the stuff I was focusing on the label, like all this kind of in between two worlds, R&B, beat music kind of thing, and then really all the music that just really eclectic stuff that to me makes perfect sense next to each other, but most program directors or retail people or distributors don't see a common thread in. Like I listen to a lot of indie rock, and I think, you know, maybe it's me growing up in Portland, but also like I said, you know, I grew up on Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Jimi Hendrix and stuff like that. So like I still listen to rock just as much as I listen to anything else. And to me, like certain groups, like current groups like Tame Impala or Unknown Mortal Orchestra, they have a certain groove or a certain beat-driven element in their music and certain melodies. So I'm like, you can play UMO right next to Coltrane or Black Spade or Lowleaf, and it's not that crazy, you know? But not too many people do that. So that's kind of like one of the ideas I wanted to implement with the show. And they're with it, and they kind of, you know, they trusted me. And I told them I wanted to name it Tight Songs because I'm horrible with coming up with names. So I'd like to just be very factual and literal with things. And they were like, no, you can't call it that. Like, that's ridiculous. And I was like, trust me, like I'm telling you, like it's gonna be dope. Like people will be like, yo, what were you doing tonight? Oh, I'm just listening to Tight Songs. Like I like things that just sound like a sentence, but if you capitalize it, it then becomes a title, you know? Yeah, and they really didn't like it, but they were like, it came down to the wire. They're like, yo, we need that new name we're gonna change it to. And I was like, yeah, I got it. It's Tight Songs. And they're like, all right, I can imagine the expressions. They just gave up. And then everyone to this day, like, you know, it's people remember the name, and I still laugh every time I hear it. I think it's great. Just in anyone's voice, Tight Songs makes me laugh. So and it's been cool. Like I think it's much more low key than the label, I think, which is great for me because I'm pretty bad at it still. Like, you know, I don't mix or anything like that. I don't try to. It's really just kind of a selected and curated playlist each week, but it's really been really helpful in because I can't mix, it's all about sequencing and making sure that, like I was saying earlier, that the last 10 seconds of one song plays nicely with the first 10 seconds of the song after it. So it's really helped me, and just kind of on some outliers, you know, 10,000 hours shit of just, you know, really getting a better sense of what makes a series of songs work well together when you can't change anything about them. You just have to accept them for how they are and finding that perfect order. And I try to kind of have like an arc of the night. You know, I usually start off pretty upbeat and kind of like big, and then like the second half of the show, because, you know, it's midnight to 2 a.m. in local time at least. So usually by the second half hour of the show, it usually gets into more kind of contemplative, sometimes sad, or sometimes kind of like sexier music, but just like slower music you can kind of sleep to, So it's where there's always kind of like a movement to it. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and I kind of use it as like a focus group, to be honest, where like if I find artists that I really like, I'll play them on the show to kind of see how they fit into the context of what I'm already working with and what I'm already listening to, and also to kind of gauge, because the audience of the show is the audience of the label, more or less, just like a finer, more focused version of it. So if they're feeling it, then, I'm like, okay, cool, like we've got something here. And then usually, I'll follow up and reach out to them, or usually they already see it, because they'll be like, oh, I saw you played my song on your show. I'm like, yeah, can I put it out? And usually they're with it. I've signed like 5 or 6 artists that way. So it's been really dope for that. Like I use it as kind of my own, personal, like focus groups like they have at the mall. What do you think of this new candy bar flavor? Like, I love it. So that's, it's my version of that.
Yeah, you're not kidding about liking names that work in sentences, because Fresh Selects kind of fits as well. I like how they tie together.
Yeah, and that was really kind of unintentional. I was just asking myself, like people, when someone asked me like what this show is, like what is it, I was just trying to answer like what, or I was trying to think of like when I'm hosting it, like, thank you for tuning in, you're now listening to blank. Like, what are they listening to? They're listening to tight songs. Like that's what it is. And then it didn't click until maybe a month later. I'm like, damn, that's like pretty much the exact same name as Fresh Selects. And that's how Fresh Selects came about too. It's just I used to just say fresh all the time as like a reaction or to things in high school.
Last name.
Yeah, and it kind of came like if you ever seen the movie The Sandlot, there's a character, where everything he says is yeah. Like, something happens, he's like, yeah, me too. So they just called him yeah, that's his name. And then in Little Rascals, there's where like everything he says is So like that was me. Like my friends just called me Kenny Fresh, because every time like a new song would come, like, oh, that shit is fresh. Like I like that a lot. So then I had to stop saying it, because now it's my name, so it seems stupid if I'm just like saying my name all the time. And
Kenny. Kenny.
Exactly. Yeah. So then it's like so then to replace fresh, I started calling things tight, So now it's just kind of like, now it's just tight. so now I gotta stop. Now I can't even, I feel stupid when I say something is tight, because they're like, yeah, I get it, tight songs. I'm like, oh shit, like I really ruined that word for me. So now I gotta find something new, and that'll be whatever I name, whatever's next.
Yeah, I'm glad you found Fresh first, because Kenny Tight doesn't work as well.
No, it seems real weird.
So who aside from yourself would you say has been most influential in getting Fresh Selects to where it is today?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, honestly, it's the artist. Like, I think to this day, most people are a fan of I think only until just recently, like very recently, the last few months. And I think the radio show has been a part of this, because it's kind of putting a voice to the name, so to speak, or kind of a face to the name with some of the flyers where they draw me on it. Only very recently have people come to recognize and address Fresh Selects as an entity and as a brand. Up until that point, it's been like, I'm a fan of Mndsgn. I love the new Mndsgn album. I'm a fan of Lowleaf. I love the Lowleaf album. I'm a fan of Coltrane, and so on and so on. And now I think it's getting to the point where they're like, oh shit, like the same label put out all those, Yeah. So yeah, like of course, like the biggest, pushers of all this has of course been the artists. Other than that, I don't even know. I really feel like, no offense to anyone else, there's been a lot of people helping me here and there, giving me tips and advice and things like that. But I feel like at the end of the day, it's just me and the artist. Like, we're really in this together. It's like us against the world, to me, is how it feels with each project. Like, it's just like me and Lowleaf on this one. And even, the artists aren't even really involved with the other releases. It's just me and Lowleaf for her album, me and Coltrane with his. It's like, it's just the two of us. And it's kind of cool in that respect. It kind of, it kind of fuels us, I think.
Yeah, and it drives you closer together, because it's not a number of chefs in the kitchen.
No.
It's two.
Yeah, and me being a chef and them being themselves, that's always too many as is. So any other, like, that's why if I were to have a traditional staff, I still to this day can't really play out in my head how it would work, because I like to be so hands-on and everything. I'm like, yeah, all those conversations I still want to be a part of. So like, what is the staff gonna do? Like, I really just need like multiple versions of myself. But you know, we'll figure it out at one point. Maybe I'll chill the fuck out and, and relax a little bit in the future. But as for now, I'm very involved with every aspect.
Yeah, cool. And you shouted out like what was his name? Adam, I think you said.
Yeah. I mean, there's multiple people. Yeah, I mean, again, like I couldn't have done any of this without Doc Adam, without Nate James, without Rob Lewis, who's my current art department. Tafik Mardini, he's like been helping me out a lot with the art. Like Christine Mayer, like she got me my first distribution deal. Now she's helping me out with consulting. YG, like I could list, I could do an Oscar speech of 50 people. Like again, like I'm not like I can't take full credit at all. But but from an outward perspective, I think it's me and the artist.
Yes, if you could choose one song that defines Fresh Selects as a label, what would it be? It doesn't have to be on the label, it could be off it could be any song.
Like from a business standpoint, I really want to say a song that's on the label, but a song that's been striking me recently is it's funny that I mentioned them earlier, but that group The Standard, they have a song called Binoculars, and
that's the intro track.
Yeah,
that song's amazing, man.
Yeah, I love that song, and I play it on my radio show a lot. And at first, I just a lot of times it's funny with the radio show. Like sometimes I kind of skim through tracks a little bit when I'm making the playlist, and it's just strictly off of vibe and kind of the beat. And then as the show is playing live, I'm like, oh shit, like this song like means so much to me and connects to me in ways that I hadn't even heard yet, And as I'm really getting a chance to listen to the whole, I mean, I listen to the songs before I play them, don't get me wrong, but like I don't really listen as intently as when it's playing.
Yeah.
And that was one of those songs that like, I'm horrible with remembering lyrics word for word, but he says something about like, mama, look what I created from my room, like just something about like, something I created from my room for the world,
for the world.
Damn, like that's really what I'm doing. Like fresh, like when I started the website, I was living in my mom's basement, like 20 years old, just like this, like the typical like blogger story, still living at home, and now I got my own place for some years now. Don't worry about that, but it all started just from my room in my mom's house, and it's something for the world, and so like that really struck a chord with me, and it's dope because those guys are that age that I was when I started, so I'm like, yeah, that's dope. Like I know exactly how they feel, and that's like, yeah. So I don't know, that's something that's really resonated with me. Other than that, it's not so much songs that I feel like kind of speak for the ethos of the label, or maybe I'll think of one later on that's like a really clever answer, but off the top of my head,
Binoculars was an awesome answer, dude, honestly. Like, especially because like that song resonated with me when I first heard it as well. I don't know what made them pick it as the intro song, but it fits so well to setting the vision. And
it's
I mean,
a great intro.
Simon killed the beat and they killed the raps too.
Yeah, but I was gonna say there's a few films that sometimes when I watch them, they remind me of what I'm doing with the label, and like two of them that really stood out to me and were kind of in my mind when I was coming up with it. They're both documentaries, and one of them is called Z Channel. It's about this guy who created the first ever like cable movie network, like before HBO and Showtime. Well, I don't know if it was before then, but his was better. Like if ones existed before him, they were just kind of super generic blockbuster films, and he was kind of like the Criterion collection of his day. I think it was like the 80s, if I'm not wrong, and he was like really picking obscure, rare films and really giving them the attention they deserved. And then in certain cases, like then through that he kind of got connections to different directors, and he became friends with them. And then a director that he really loved and was a fan of, they would come out with a new movie and the critics would pan it and say it was awful. And he knew the director, and he knew that the only reason why that movie came out so bad was because the studio made him cut an hour out of it, So he would go to the director and be like, yo, let's like, give me the director's cut, give me the 3-hour version. and I'll air that on my station. And then he would air, and then all the movie critics would be like, oh, this is one of the most important movies of the last, 10 years. And he had a really dope, love and appreciation for film and a talent for curating. And that's something that I've always kind of strived to do with the label. And the other one, kind of similar concept, is a movie called Who Gets to Call It Art, about, I can't even remember his name, but about a really influential art gallery curator who was a big part of kind of the pop art scene with Andy Warhol and all those guys. So those two movies, I think, kind of represent what I'm trying to do. I can't say I'm pulling it off yet. I won't give myself that much credit, but like that's the type of legacy I'd like to leave behind. It's just kind of like a great curator and a connector of people, and just kind of a platform that elevated certain works of art and helped it get to the audience it was always meant to reach.
That's a really cool answer, man. No one's ever gone beyond the medium of music, and your music answer was cool too. Just in case you're interested, the guy's name was Henry Geldzahler or something?
Yeah,
Yeah, I just looked it up.
Yeah, when you watch the movies, both of them definitely have their interesting characteristics. And the guy who created Z Channel, he later went on to murder his wife and kill himself. So I wouldn't say he's a personal idol in his lifestyle, but what he did as a curator is definitely a huge influence on what I do to this day and how I do it.
Cool. So the most recent Fresh Selects release is the full LP version of Sir's 7 Sundays. He dropped that on SoundCloud as an EP late last year, if I recall correctly. Yeah. How did you two meet, and what's the relation between the EP version he uploaded last year and the LP album that we have now?
Yeah, see, that's kind of going back to the original concept of the album. Of the label, where it's kind of like trying to make more permanent and more strategic releases of things that were just kind of mixtapes or released, just independently by an artist online. So how that came about is I think I found it through Iman Omari, who produced one of the tracks. He retweeted the album the day it dropped, or the EP at the time. And so I checked it out. I was just looking for songs for my radio show, and I skimmed through it and listened to it, and I was like, yeah, this is really dope. So I just messaged Sir. I'd never met him or anything, and I was like, hey man, I have a radio show. Could you send me MP3s of this? I would love to play it, on my show. Because you couldn't even download it; you could only stream it.
I remember, trust me.
Yeah, so he was super cool, and he hit me like right back. I think because it was like the day before my show was gonna air. It was like on a Friday, and I do Saturday nights. So I think he hit me back within like 12 hours with a download link, and that night I played "Love You," I think. And then I really kind of sat with the songs for like a week and just listening to them again and again. And I was like, man, like this is way too good. Like I hit him back like, yo, I didn't even mention this, but I also have a label. Like I would love to like release this. And he was kind of like, from what I remember, I think he was like super open from day one. I didn't really need to like pitch it too hard. I mentioned that, because originally Mndsgn was the first release, and then I had a few releases planned with Iman Omari. I was going to re-release Energy and Euphoria, his mixtape with Maroof. I think we still might do those at some point. Energy since got re-released on vinyl, so that's why we didn't do that. But Euphoria, I think we still might put on tape. But so I told him, I was like, yeah, we have some friends in common. I got projects with Iman, blah, blah, blah. So I think he later told me that he hit up Iman, like, yo, who is this guy? Like, is he legit? Like, what's up with him? And Iman vouched for me, like, yo, he's cool. Like, I'm fucking with him. I'm putting out projects with him. So he was like, okay, cool. Like, yeah, bet. So I told him, it was, 9 tracks originally. I told him, like, yeah, if you can give me like at least 2 to 3, bonus tracks to for all the people who have already heard it, then we could release it as an album. He was like, okay, great. He was like, I got no shortage of songs. He sent me like 20 songs like the next week. And a lot of them were great. Like all of them were super dope. But most of them were really kind of big records, and a lot of them were like hits, and so to me, I picked the ones that spoke the most to me, and also that fit best with the album. Again, it's just all about the art of creating a perfect album and a really cohesive listen and trying to make it kind of tell a story. So I picked 4 songs from what he sent me, and I sent it back to him and kind of told him my reasoning, and he was like completely caught off guard. He was like, yo, I wouldn't have picked any of those songs you picked, but like I see it, that's dope, like let's go with it. He just kind of trusted me, and I was like, okay, cool. Because again, like there were other songs that were like bigger and like more obvious hits. He was like, I thought you were gonna go with those. He's like, nah man, that's not really like what I'm trying to do here. I want to make like a great album. He's like, that's tight, like let's do it. And then as we were, so it was like 13 tracks, and then as we were kind of mixing it or mastering it and doing artwork, like it didn't really feel right. And then I was kind of like on his SoundCloud, and I heard this other song that he had done with one of the producers, DK the Punisher. This song they released even before the EP called He Deserves Your Love. And I was like, yo, like we need that one. That's the one that's missing. We need that at the end of the album. It kind of wraps everything up and kind of puts a nice little spin on it. Where like he doesn't get the girl, but he's cool with it. Like he's glad that she's with someone else. Like it's all good. Like, and he was like, oh yeah, okay. And then it was 7 Sundays, so that it made the album 14 tracks, 2 sets of 7. I was like, yeah, that's it. Like it didn't feel right, you know. So yeah, that's how it all kind of came together. And we did new artwork, and he was super cool and really trusting with the whole process. You know, again, it was kind of some back and forth, and again, it was some of me kind of having to like earn his trust as far as like why I was making certain decisions. He was like, you crazy? Like, why are you choosing those songs? Or why do you want the artwork to be like this? Because I think I don't know, I don't think he would have went the direction I went with the artwork on his own. Like he originally had some completely different artwork that was just like text-based and like colors and stuff.
Yeah, it was like textures.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, I don't think that's really like, that's not, I don't know, I think it needs to be something. And I really like the idea of it being him, his face, because, you know, R&B is always, like, image is a big part of it, especially with, like, male R&B. You know, they want, like, the singer's face. But I was like, but these songs are so... He's a great songwriter because every song is clearly about one thing, and it's so universal. Like, anyone can relate to it. It's not like a me and my girl. He's not saying names. He's not saying, like, specific things about the relationship. It's just kind of...
It's so relatable. It's
very, not generic at all, but very general in the best kind of way, like kind of ubiquitous. So I was like, yeah, it'd be dope if we got we didn't really plan it this way, but we just did a photo shoot. And then one of the photos, and the photographer sent back like a few photos, like, yeah, there's only like 5 that I like. I was like, yeah, these are cool, but can you just send me like all the ones, like even the ones you don't like? She sent me a bunch of ones that were out of focus, and she was like, yeah, you can't really do much with these. And I was like, that's it, like that's the one. It's like, because it's him, but it's not really him. It could be anyone, you know?
Yeah.
And he's not really the type of guy where he wants his face.
I was gonna say, yeah, he likes to stay behind the...
Yeah, and I'm the same way, so I totally get it, you know, in that regard. So I was like, yeah, that's perfect. And I really liked, you know, R&B albums are usually so obvious, and just the way they're laid out from a design perspective is like the artist front and center in some type of like
showing off the body,
licking their lips,
like,
kind of
provocative pose,
chest recording. And I like this one. Originally, that photo had like a big ass liquor store sign in it, and that could have been cool, but that kind of sends a different kind of message that I don't think is the message of the album. So we just photoshopped that out and just let it. And then my art director was kind of like, you know, what should we put there? And I was like, nothing. Just let it breathe. Like, let it just be like that bold and that blank, and just put the type really small, like not, you know, overbearing. And then we both just kind of sat back from the computer and were like, yeah, that's dope. Like, yeah, let's go with that. And I think it's kind of paid off. And I think, like I really like how it came out, and I'm super proud of it. And it's one of those things where I can't really listen to to listen to any of these albums really stresses me out while we're working on it, because I'm like, we need to change this one. This song is slightly louder than the one before it, but now it's done and I can't change anything about it. It's out into the world and people own it in physical copies, so now I can just listen to it and know that it's too late to change anything. And I'm like, yeah, I really like this. It came out really good. So yeah, I'm happy about that one.
Yeah, man, it's an incredible release, and I think it's done a lot for both you and for Sir. It's funny because if you search like Sir 7 Sundays, the first image in like Google Images is the new artwork, and the second one is the old one, and you can see the difference, man.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, again, like I'm a fucking pretentious asshole. So I think to this day, I think Sir really likes the original artwork, and like that's all good. You know, we all have our own tastes. But to me, I'm like, nah, like it just deserves so much better. Like I think the new artwork, I think is just much more timeless, and I think it'll look just as good as it does today as it, 50 years from now, because the photo is timeless and a blank sky with a gradient, like none of that is going to change.
And he works on so many layers regarding like Sir's character and the music and what the message is, even to yourself, and like staying like behind the scenes and whatever.
Exactly. And that was another album where like the intention was to just make it like an R&B as a genre, especially like, because Sir comes more from the lineage of like there's the Coltrane side of R&B, which is like always been a really dope, very artistic, independent side of singer-songwriter stuff, which is more so what I've always been drawn to. But Sir's not really from that lineage. Like he's more so from like I don't even want to make any comparisons that like aren't fair, but he's more of like a radio R&B, like major label type of guy. Like that's like musically, I think that's like you're more likely to catch him listening to Music Soul Child and I don't know, maybe R. Kelly or someone like that than something really obscure and super artsy.
He's songwritten for like quite a few amazing artists as well.
Yeah, exactly, like Jill Scott and Tyrese and like all that stuff. So with that, I didn't want to brand, like again, that's why it's really important to me for Fresh Selects not to be this big ass logo that's on all these things, because then people might kind of try to pigeonhole Sir as like this like indie Coltrane type of singer when he's not at all. So I really wanted artwork and just kind of the whole approach to really be Fresh Selects going into his world, rather than bring him into our world a little bit, but more so us going to him rather than the other way around. And but with that world has always been very single driven, and it's always a lot of those artists I named, they'll have like one song for the girls, one song for like a sad song for the girls, one song for the club, one song for the thugs, just like corny shit. And the albums are really spotty, but they're amazing artists, amazing singers, but the albums aren't something you can listen to from front to back. So I was like, 7 Sundays, it has to be that album where like you would be crazy to skip a track. Like if you were in a car and you skip a track, someone would be like, hey, that's my favorite song.
Why?
So that's why I chose the songs I chose, because it's like very intentional. I feel like with the EP, it kind of jumped a bit. Like Liberation, there wasn't really any other songs that sounded like it, so it kind of stood out. So I put other songs around there that kind of sounded like elements of it, so it made a little bit more sense. It added more context to it, And I changed the order of certain songs because I felt like, it's a bit too early to get that emotional. You got to save Perfect Remedy towards the end and things like that. And I was very intentional about that. And all of that, I think Sir was just kind of like, he was like, again, he's a very intentional artist, like, don't get me wrong, but a lot of it, he was getting so frustrated with me being so analytical that at a certain point he was like, yo, man, whatever. Like, I sent him the track list and he was like, all right, that makes sense. And then I started to change it and refine it. And he was like, yo, like, do what you want, man. Like, just give me a release date and put it out. And I was like, okay, I swear, we're going to get it out this summer because it's a summer album. But I think with that, and then again, when we put it out, that's been like the number one thing I see from people who hit us up on the Bandcamp reviews, on Twitter, on Facebook, in the press, is that like, this is like, oh, it's an album that you can listen to from front to back. And that's like the most rewarding thing. I'm like, yes, like we did it. If we didn't do anything else, like that's my main goal, is I just wanted a really universal, radio accessible, like quality level of catchiness R&B album that has no filler, no songs that you would ever need to skip. And I feel like we did that. So yeah, that's my personal sense of achievement with that album. But yeah, it's been a blessing. Like we've reached, I think Fresh Selects as a brand has reached more people with that album than maybe any of the previous ones. And so hopefully they stick around and they're into, what's next for us. And I think it's really helped Sir, who, when he put it out on SoundCloud on its own, but when he signed the deal, I don't think any of the songs had more than like 1,000 plays. But I told him, it's cool. Like you could leave the playlist up, just kind of put Fresh Selects in the description or something, just kind of shout us out. But you could let's let it rock until we have a solid release date while we working on artwork and stuff like that. And then a few months later, I checked back and it's got like 100,000, 200,000 plays. I'm like, oh shit, like it just kind of blew up on its own. So like, again, I can't take too much credit. Like that music just presented, you know, as plain as day with the old artwork still went really far. So I think that just says a lot about the quality of those songs and everything that Sir did. But I do think, you know, Sir has benefited too, just from getting like, you know, more press and more just strategy behind, you know, putting it out. And I think hopefully it's been mutually beneficial. Like that's always the goal with everything. Like I don't want to be riding anyone else's wave or, you know, piggybacking off of anyone's talent or their associations. I want to offer them just as much as you know, benefiting from what they're doing.
That's dope, man. And yeah, like you said, it's paid off because Sir recently was made MySpace's Artist of the Day, right?
Yeah, that was pretty cool. That was the homegirl, Nalina, who used to live in Portland. She reached out to me and she writes for MySpace now, and she was really into his stuff. And so yeah, he became MySpace Artist of the Day.
Yeah, that's tight, man. And you, Sir's had a couple of articles written about him, hasn't he?
Yeah, that's been.
I can't remember who I read it, like where I read it, or who wrote it, but there was definitely like an in-depth article that I read.
Yeah, and that's another big thing I like to focus on is, you know, because when I would do original content for the blog, I would always send it out to other blogs for them to repost it, because that's how I learned how a lot of how it grew and how we get a lot of our traffic as well from other, you know, sites reposting it and crediting it back to us. So I've always just kind of used that approach. But I learned from that it's just kind of like whatever I would send them in the emails, most sites, they would pretty literally just copy and paste what I wrote and just post that and then the embed of the link or whatever it is. And I'm like, damn, like that's cool, but you're like not really. And a lot of things I would just write them real quick, like, yo, here's the newest single from Coltrane. It's from his album, God Must Be a Boogeyman. And then it would be their post would be, here's the new single from Coltrane. It's from his new album, God Must Be a Boogeyman. I'm like, damn, like that's it. Like that's all you're gonna give them. So now I really make it a point that I'm like, okay, like, you know, because it's all about finding media partners to premiere certain singles and things like that. I'm like, okay, like if they're gonna get the premiere, then they at least gotta interview them, you know? Like these artists have more to say than just here's my new single, like, and there's more to it than just like check out the new single. Like if there's like some backstory that you wouldn't know unless you ask them certain questions, you know? So it's been a point starting really with I think with the Low Leaf album we kind of did. That's kind of where I really got frustrated with, like, man, they're not even like writing anything about it. So with the Coltrane album, I kind of learned from that, and I would kind of, you know, it would be a requirement that if you were going to get a premiere from us, you had to interview Coltrane. And Coltrane, like, has always such amazing things to say. Like, I ended up just I would just pull quotes from his interviews and just post them on Instagram. And I never post just like text on Instagram. Like I'm not that dude who's like, you know, memes and stuff. But he would just say things that are so incredible. Like he's just such a poet, just in kind of everyday speech. So he was just dropping little gems just from like, you know, everyday interview questions. So with Sir it's kind of the same thing. He got some really cool interviews, and I think like Fact Magazine was a really good one. Afropunk interviewed him recently. I don't think that one's out yet, but yeah, there's been a few others. OK Player had a really good in-depth one with him. But yeah, that's big to me, because that's another way where it helps to benefit the artist and to build their audience, and so people can feel actual connection with them and see where they're coming from. And usually when the interviews come back, you know, we get their answers, I learned something about the artist. I'm like, damn, I didn't know that about, like, you know, I didn't know that about his family or about that. That's what that song is about. Like, I'm glad, you know, I learned something that I'm involved with the project. So yeah, so I think that's important.
That wraps up part 1 of the interview. So please check back next week for part 2, in which we talk about Gangsta Doodles and his artwork, which Kenny uses for each of the guest mixes that he features on his radio show Tight Songs. Changes that Kenny would like to see in the music scene, artists that you should be looking out for, and of course a lot more. Thanks for listening.